Welcome to another episode of Stories from WineCountry.com. I'm Pete Swanson, filmmaker from Leicester, Mass.
And I'm Jim Nickus from the Castle Restaurant in Leicester, Massachusetts.
So what's on the docket this week, Jim?
Oh, actually a couple of newer stories. One that happened about 2 months ago and one a few days ago. And they were all somewhat related. The first one is kind of a funny story because it's something I would virtually never have dreamed of. A good friend and wine buyer and seller from California was doing business in the Boston area with a young associate he was teaching the ropes to. So it was Frank and Isaac, and we were in contact, and it was, well, you know what, let's have dinner. So it was a day off, and we were gonna eat and have a few bottles of nice wine. And he hadn't seen the cellar in a while, and wanted to take a look at the wine cellar. So we trudged over, and we were gonna take a look at the cellar, and he was kind of like a hungry bear, pulling bottles and looking at different vintages, and it really was kind of fun because he's very interested and very kind of consumed wine professional. So he was looking at a case, and he said, well, there's something wrong here. Look at this. And I reached over, pulled a bottle, and the bottle was this 1975 Chateau Pavie, a Saint-Emilion Merlot base wine, 44 years old. Yeah, you know, usually you'd go like, well, it's 44 years old, but this is pretty much a spectacular wine. But it was laying on its side, and it was only half full. Well, that's not a good sign. And when you inspected it, you could see that the cork had actually fallen into the bottle. I was like, okay. You know, I pulled it aside and I bring it upstairs and just throw it away, because 44 years later, there's no recourse. You know, wine is a living thing. You're going to lose some. And that's kind of the nature of the business. As we looked at it, the color was absolutely pristine. And no way that it should have been. And the more we looked at it as we were kind of getting ready to go back to the house to cook dinner, we both said, well, let's just open this and see what it's like. And we expected we were just going to spit it out, throw the bottle away, end the story. So we cut the capsule and poured a glass of wine for all of us. You know, it's a small taste because there was only half a bottle left. And the color was impeccable. The nose, phenomenal. The taste was absolutely picture perfect. No way should this have transpired, because the only thing that kept that wine intact was this piece of material, the capsule. You know, this is plastic, and prior to 1990, they were all lead. This was a lead capsule. Absolutely perfectly formed and tight, which probably kept a good part of the air out, some due to evaporation, yes, but the wine had enough substance to fight off the ill effects, and there was very little damage here. You know, the funny thing that you think of later is, okay, so the only thing in contact with the outside world in this bottle was a lead capsule. So do we all experience lead poisoning? You know, who knows? I'm not sure if I can remember everything anymore, but yeah, truthfully, you know, prior to 1990, they were all lead, and someone, you know, because sommeliers would always cut the lead off or wipe the bottle, but you know, someone somewhere just prior to 1990 said, well, if a drop of wine drips into that lead and then into your glass, you're going to get lead poisoning. Well, you know what? So anyway, the winemakers all switched to tin, plastic, fabric after 1990. And that's why you'll see that this capsule was cut off completely, because I don't want to get into that, is it or isn't it? So I just cut all the capsule off. Winemakers hate it because they spend a lot of money, putting their names and decorations on the capsule. But this saves me a lot of kind of trouble down the line. So anyway, back to the 75 Pavie Merlot base. Again, 44 years old, half full bottle, cork in the bottle, capsule. The only thing that's keeping it from the outside world. The wine was absolutely pristine.
So what attracted you to that wine in the first place?
The particular vineyard, Chateau Pavie, is really a well-known vineyard. The winemaking is always been just tremendous. The location, the soil, the vintage itself, the 75 vintage, was actually my first buy of Bordeaux's in quantity, and they've handled the test of time.
Wow. So with the air in the bottle, isn't that a danger to the wine?
Oh, it can very well be a danger to the wine. It can unravel a wine in a heartbeat. Why this didn't is, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it. It was something that I've never seen four wine professionals so enamored with a situation and a result as that. So,
if you're looking for a bottle, if that air is below the shoulder, what's this?
It's called ullage or ullage. It can be that it's high shoulder or low shoulder. That's not necessarily a good sign. It is not the end of the world. The wine could still have all the vibrancy. The worst possible scenario is you might have lost an ounce or two of enjoyment. On the other side of the coin, yes, it could be a serious flaw where oxygen is seeped in, wine is seeped out. The wine could be at less than 100% perfect. It is a crapshoot. It's one of those things where, like people, give it a chance. If it proves it's not, then chalk it up to experience and to a little more knowledge.
So your friend who was visiting from California, he hadn't seen a cellar in a while. Was he impressed with the cellar?
Very impressed with the cellar, and we had a few bottles of wine that again they were, and some of them were, just perfect. One that we had was a Chardonnay base. It's a Meursault from Louis Jadot. Louis Jadot is a negociant. He has properties of his own in Burgundy. This is a Chardonnay-based wine from the 1999 vintage, so we're talking 20-year-old Chardonnay. Not what most Americans would think would be viable. But on inspection, when you put this to the light, the color was pristine clarity, light green tinge. The wine had not lost a half step in 20 years. Unfortunately, I don't have any more, but it's one of those things that when you taste it, you just go like, okay, it shouldn't be, but it is. And that's the remarkable thing about wine, is that there are no absolutes. There's no one can tell you perfectly that this is good, this is bad. It's subjective and it's individual taste, and sometimes it's just the luck of the draw.
Great. Just curious, what were you serving for dinner with that?
Actually, this was oysters. This was we did this earlier. We did another 75 Bordeaux at Chateau Pomerol, again Merlot based with Racolin.
Great. Sounds terrific. Well, it's a great story. Thanks, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.